Roudy, thank you so much for jumping on. And today's conversation is going to be very, very interesting. We've talked a little bit about sleep on the podcast before, but I feel like we can't talk about it enough. And what you and I are going to get into today is going to be very interesting for my audience. If you're listening, ladies, as tying in sleep and light and artificial light and natural light and how it works with our bodies and even with our hormones and even with our weight. Did you know that artificial light can actually cause an increase in sugar and carb cravings and can affect your weight or inability to lose weight? So we're going to talk about that today with my guest, Roudy Nassif. Thank you so much for jumping on. I love how much you've dove into this topic. We're going to obviously get into your story, but thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Amy.
So we have to start with your story because it's just so compelling. I mean, you had ADHD, you were tired, you were depressed. And I mean, to look at you, and if anyone ever meets you in person like I did, you're a beacon of health. Like you look amazing. You look, vibrant and young and healthy. But you went through a really tough time. So why don't you tell me and tell the audience about that and then what led you into this space of studying light?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a kid, I was 3 or 4 years old, living in Lebanon, and I was struggling with intense headaches, agitation, and inability to focus. And all I wanted from that very young age is to be outside in nature, because that's the place where I felt most inspired. And I would be able to tap into nature's rhythm and write poetry. And to me, that was the most conducive environment for learning. However, my teachers were not very educated and they could not understand my condition. So they labeled me with ADHD and they forced me back into the classroom where I felt like I'm in a prison cell all the time. So I had to develop a strategy to break free from that prison. And believe it or not, Amy, I was actually asked to leave 7 different schools. Yeah, I was known as the trouble kid.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward a few years, I somehow landed myself into engineering school. But by then, most people were looking at me as, wow, like Roudy, you're like in engineering school. But the way I was looking at myself is something completely different because I was feeling very depressed, very disoriented. And by that time, I completely disconnected from my inner self and my intuition, having suffered and struggled and fought so much throughout my school years to be understood. And I start living like a night owl, wired all night and completely useless and drained during the day. And I literally felt like I've been chewed up and spat out by life, never up for much. And we're talking, I'm like 20 years old. That's not supposed to be that way.
Right.
I was constantly unmotivated in my social life and literally dragging myself through the day as if I'm wearing a massive backpack full of rocks.
Yeah. No, let me ask you this really quick. I want to pause you because here in the United States, we'd be throwing medications at kids left and right for their ADHD. Did they try to do that with you or what happened?
They did.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a deep no inside of myself. And I really started behaving very oddly to them anytime they tried to introduce the medication. My mom didn't understand the situation very much, yet she was very intuitively connected to my needs. And even without understanding intellectually what was going on, she said a no, just because she knew it was a complete no for me. And don't ask me how I knew it's a no. I'm like very, very young, though like I heard a voice within myself. It's like an absolute no. So luckily I did not get into medication.
Good. Yep. I had to ask because how many people are listening right now that have kids with learning disabilities and ADHD and they might be considering medication, but I'm going to encourage them as well as my menopausal women to keep listening because this is going to be a tie-in to how you can help your child as well.
Absolutely. Most of the times when we are dealing with any situation that appears to be chaotic or unbalanced, it's actually the cause of something detrimental that is happening around us. And the body is giving us a signal so that we can fix that thing. And unfortunately, in today's society, most of the time, we seek short cycle, short validation cycles. We want to fix the issue now. And often it happens with a pill or with a supplement or with something quick. And what I learned throughout my life is quick fixes do not work oftentimes.
Mhm.
And in order to tap into that euphoric, true happy state, it doesn't happen with like temporary fixes. It's actually a commitment to live a life that is in alignment with ourselves and with nature's cycle. And my 25 years of suffering is literally showing me and like the people around me that oftentimes we know the answer within us. And the answer is very simple, yet we make it so complicated. And for me, as I graduated from engineering school, I started working as an engineer in Africa for about 3 or 4 years. And that was the most destructive time I've ever lived in my life because I became completely depressed and I was trying to hide my depression and pretending that I'm showing up at my work and I'm living a regular life. But
Mhm.
underneath all of this was a kid within that was deeply in pain. And I started to um, rely on, partying and drugs to numb my pain.
Mhm.
And within 4 years, I literally hit the lowest point in my life when I was fired from my job as an engineer. And that shook me. I remember waking up the second day feeling literally like like a car has ran over me. I was completely paralyzed with sadness and fatigue, laying down in my bed, staring at the ceiling for hours. And imagine being in a state where you cannot bring yourself to get up from bed or even find a compelling reason to do so.
Mhm.
So as you may imagine, I was pretty much suicidal. And the only reason I did not suicide is because I really cared and loved my mom, and I did not want to cause her that pain. So, few evenings after that, I stumbled upon a quote from Albert Einstein, and it said, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." And Amy, like, it's phenomenal, but sometimes like words like hit you deeply in your soul. It literally struck me like a bolt of lightning. And I decided that it was time to change. In that moment, I no longer cared about what others around me want me to do. And I no longer cared about my image and my career and building that career. Nothing mattered to me anymore. I knew that it was time for me to break free from all those chains that were absolutely purposeless
Mhm.
and meaningless. And I made the decision to start traveling into the unknown, literally. It was scary, but I knew that was the answer for me. And my intention was to learn from different health experts so that I could improve my health and well being.
Mhm.
And during my travel, I was learning from different health gurus. And within a matter of a few months, I started feeling deep overwhelmed because I was in this scene where different health gurus were telling me different things and they all contradicted each other. And I found myself in this scene of like, eat this, don't eat that, take this supplement, no, that supplement. And it was all too much and extremely confusing.
And you have a lot of listeners right now nodding their heads because it does get very overwhelming in this space when you're searching for an answer for your health. It does.
Absolutely. It feels like literally like an extremely overwhelming and lonely journey at times. And it's like, it appears to be very complicated, but the truth is it's not. And as I progress forward and sharing my story, you will realize the simplicity of like the underlying principle of Mother Nature, which we are connected to. And when we tune into that principle, everything else becomes very clear, becomes very easy.
Mhm.
So at that time, I started trying all these different diets, you name it. And I bought a lot of different expensive supplements and nothing seemed to help. So I thought to myself, oh my God, like, is it only me? Like, is like, there's something wrong with me. So I start, feeling and uh, directing that pain at myself, thinking that I am the cause of this. And sure enough, within a few days, I was completely lost in the vast sea of the internet, scrolling on YouTube, watching videos. It was 1 a.m. in the morning, and I found this video by a doctor. His name is Dr. Jack Cruz, and it was titled "Artificial Light is Killing Us." And I say ironically is because I'm blasted with all these artificial light at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
And at the time, my mind was extremely foggy. So literally, I'm going to be totally honest with you. Everything he said literally flew over my head. I did not understand one word. But the one line that stood out and it kept flashing into my consciousness the second day, it said, "You can't get healthy in the same light environment that made you sick."
Ooh.
And by light environment, he meant the light that we're exposed to all the time when we are indoors, from our LED bulbs, from our screens, from our phones, from our televisions. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, like, how could it even be possible for me to be in an environment that is free from artificial lights? I thought it's impossible.
Right.
And I sat down and I'm talking with a friend. He's a backpacker. And he actually recommended a website called Woofing, WOOFING, where you could find farmers living in rural areas up northern Canada in the US. And you could apply to go volunteer and live at their farm. So technically you go farm with them in exchange for accommodation and food. And I got really excited about the idea. And I applied for this farm up north with indigenous people. And I arrived to this phenomenal, beautiful area in northern Quebec. And for 6 weeks, Amy, I was sleeping in my tent. And I was exposed to natural sunlight during the day and fire and candlelight during the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the crazy thing that happened. Within a matter of 3 days, I felt a phenomenal transformation that I could not comprehend. Number one, my intense headaches and eye strain completely disappeared. And having thought to myself that I'm a night owl, I start sleeping shortly after the sunset to then wake up at dawn with no alarm clock naturally, feeling fresh, rested, and exhilarated with a sense of joy that I've never felt in my life. And having been told that I'm an ADHD kid all of my life, I can't focus, something on the field happened that literally shook my paradigm. And it put me to tears because for the first time ever, I feel this warm hand of this farmer tapping on my shoulder. And he was actually praising me for the level of focus I was showing on the field.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment I heard this, I felt like chills traveling up and down my spine. And I was in tears because for the first time ever, after 23 years, somebody said that I'm no longer that ADHD kid. And that was really powerful to me.
That's so powerful. I even have chills. I mean, if that story doesn't speak to the power of natural light and what we're doing to ourselves with the artificial light, I don't know what will. Obviously, we're going to continue talking about it, but we could end the podcast right there and be like, do you guys get it or not? You know, I mean, that's how powerful that story is. It really is. So
Yes.
take it from there. What's next?
So the main thing on the farm is I didn't do any of the complicated things that most health gurus were asking me to do. I was free of all these things. The
Mhm.
only thing that changed is my light environment.
Okay.
And even more puzzling, Amy, that after 6 weeks, I came back to Toronto in Canada, in the city. And within a matter of few weeks, I completely lost that exaltation that I felt on the farm. I started feeling wired and stimulated at night, completely unmotivated and exhausted when I wake up first thing in the morning. So that in that moment, I decided to go to another farm. And for 3 or 4 years, I went on this very interesting experiment and pattern of alternating between farms and cities.
Oh,
And I became the scientist or the experimenter that wanted to map out the difference and understand at a more profound, embodied level, what is it about those farmers that made them so vital and vibrant? Because one thing I saw is the quality of light that I've seen in their eyes, I've never seen in the community of folks who were following very complicated diets and dogmatic things.
mhm.
So I asked myself a very important question, like, what is the difference? What about those farmers that is making them so happy, so alive, and so vibrant? And the answer was so simple, Amy. I observed that all of them lived a very natural lifestyle that is balanced and rhythmic and connected to the nature to nature's balanced rhythm. So
Mhm.
they woke up before the sunrise with no alarm clock naturally because they had a robust circadian biology,
Mhm.
and they spent a lot of their time outdoors in natural light. They worked with the earth, so obviously they were grounded most of the time.
Right.
They ate food that was grown under the sunlight that they lived in. So they
Yeah.
ate seasonally,
Mhm.
which is very important. And they also had a specific rhythm and a consistent rhythm in their eating. They ate at the same time every day, and they fasted when the sun is down. And the last observation is they were never exposed to artificial light after the sunset. So in simple ways, they lived a balanced rhythmic lifestyle that's in alignment with nature's balanced rhythm. And this rhythm was fundamentally impacting every aspect of their health. So they kept them going and they were happy, they were aligned, they were able to tune in into their needs, into what their bodies needed in a specific, at a given point. And what I noticed is that every time I was on the farm, I became a lot more connected to my inner self. I could hear the whispering that is very tiny and it's very difficult to hear when we are in noisy cities surrounded by artificial lights and
Mhm.
constantly distracted with social media and videos and people talking. And fundamentally, that led me to this 7-year journey so far, investigating light, circadian biology, and what we call quantum biophysics. And that describes literally the forces of physics of light and magnetism and how they are the bosses that are instructing our neurochemistry on what to do.
Mhm.
Instead of thinking that we are the product of neurochemistry, we are now coming to realize that there are forces of nature, forces of physics, and forces of life that are the primarily instructors informing our neurochemistry what to do and when to do what.
Right. Right. So wait, did you happen to really geek out at all? And this is just a question that's popping into my head, and look at the amount of cancer or disease that are in those populations of farmers that live that way?
The interesting data that I looked at is seeing the rates of cancers and most chronic diseases have tremendously increased in the past 100 years.
Right.
And that ties into something fundamental that happened in our society. In
The
the
invention of
past
the light
100
bulb.
years, yes, the
Yeah.
invention of the light bulb, Edison bulb followed by the LED lights. And we moved from a workforce that was fundamentally spending 98% of our time outdoors in sunlight,
Mhm.
and that we were never exposed to any form of artificial light after the sunset, to a lifestyle where the average person today is spending 12 to 16 hours under artificial lights every single day.
Yeah.
And light is the most powerful force that shapes and molds every aspect of our life and well-being. It literally controls our endocrine system, our circadian system, and our nervous system. And when we manufacture light bulbs that have no relation to nature's balance, and we spend most of our time under those lights, it completely disrupts our circadian biology, our sleep, our metabolism, and every aspect of our health and well-being. So with that being said, I do think that there's a massive correlation between the increase of chronic disease and cancer and the massive behavioral change that happened in our society, where we moved from a dominated life being outdoors to spending most of our days indoors. And the fascinating thing, Amy, is that if you think about it, sunlight emits 100,000 lux of brightness of light.
Okay.
When we are indoors during the day, at its best, we are exposed to 500 to 1,000 lux. So that's almost like 100 to 1,000 times less bright than sunlight. Now, on the other hand, we are blasted with bright artificial rooms after the sunset that are 1,000 times brighter than a full moon. So in a way, we are living upside down. Our days are looking like a cave, and our nights are 1,000 times brighter than a full moon. And this fundamentally completely disconnect us from the fundamental universal rhythm that instruct every aspect of our cell about what to do what.
And this
then
makes
our bodies
sense.
are completely confused.
Well, and it makes sense why so many people now will say they're fatigued during the day and then they get a second wind at night and they're wired at night. So, I mean, again, kind of going back to your point of there's so many people in this space saying what it could be, myself included. I mean, could it be thyroid and hormones? Absolutely. Could it be cortisol? Absolutely. But I think getting back to basics, and I try to do this with my patients as well, where I'll say, yes, we need to look at the endocrine system. We need to look at your thyroid levels. We need to look at your hormone levels. We need to look at your insulin. We need to look at your cortisol. But let's not forget the basics. And that's why I'm so happy that we're talking about light today, because people, they blow it off. Oh, well, yeah, okay. It's not a pill. It's not a supplement. It's not a medication. It's not a hormone. How important could it be?
Yeah.
And in just this conversation so far, and we haven't even dove in, I'm realizing through listening to you how important light is. Like, I know it's one of those internal knowing, but until I talk to an expert and they punch me in the face with facts, that's when I really kind of light up. So I'm hoping that this will also be a punch in the face. Sorry, people, but a figurative punch in the face to my listeners to really realize how important this is to every symptom that they are having. So if you are a woman out there listening, or a man, and you're like, I'm really dragging through the day, and then I get this second wind at night, it could literally be because you're living, like you said, in an upside down world. Your day is night and your night is day.
Yes, light is a drug, and it's the primary force that is instructing the release of every hormone that you may imagine. And when we view light after the sunset, it increases the stress hormone cortisol, which is not supposed to be present in the body after the sunset.
Right.
And that causes you to instantly feel more wired, more stimulated, and you fall under the illusion that you have more energy at night. But the reality is your body is secreting the wrong hormone at the wrong time. And the true tragedy happen is anytime you have cortisol in your system, you can't have melatonin, the sleep hormone, and you can't also have growth hormone, both of which are absolutely essential, not only for falling asleep, but for accessing restful night's sleep and waking up feeling refreshed and energized. This doesn't happen by chance. It happens by design, and it's controlled by what we call circadian rhythms, which comes from the Latin word circa and dia, means this 24-hour rhythm that we all go through, plants, animals, and humans. And this clock controls our energy level, our detoxification system, our bowel movement, reproduction, and digestion. And it's responsible for timing all of these different things at the right time of the day or the night during a 24-hour cycle. So we spoke about viewing light after the sunset increases cortisol, the stress hormone. It sabotages melatonin and growth hormone, melatonin being also the highest antioxidant in nature.
Right.
One molecule of melatonin can ward off 5 to 10 free radicals compared to the most effective antioxidant from food, which could ward off one free radical. So naturally produced melatonin due to proper exposure to sunlight during the day and lack of exposure to artificial light at night will induce the production of the highest antioxidant in nature 5 to 10 times more powerful than the most powerful antioxidant from food. So that's nature's medicine, anti-aging. And this circadian clock, it literally functioned like just like I like to describe it as a musical symphony. And just like in a musical symphony, in order for the full orchestra with many musicians to produce harmonious music, they need to be guided by a conductor who is reading the musical notes and instructing all the musicians on what to do so that they can synchronize together and produce harmonious music. Now, in our bodies, this conductor is the master clock in the brain, and it's reading those musical notes coming from sunlight and darkness. And it's responsible for telling all the musicians, like our organs, the thyroid gland, the pituitary gland, all of our endocrine systems, and the millions of our cells in our body, what to do. So it's how our body knows when to wake up in the morning and have energy to tackle big problems, and when to go to bed so that we can rest, repair, and rejuvenate. And this central clock relies primarily on two simple things to maintain that solid rhythm. Number one, sunlight, first thing in the morning, especially in the first 2 hours of the day. And number two, the absence of light after the sunset, that darkness that we're all missing. It's so tragic how in today's world, it's very difficult to get that darkness. Nobody remember what it feels like to be in a dark environment. In fact, most of my friends that come to my house, I do live by the ocean, 25 minutes away from town. It's a protected area where there's a lot of turtles. So the use of artificial light after the sunset is prohibited. And when my friends come here, at the beginning, they get freaked out. They're like, what? What's going on? And the fascinating thing, the story happens consistently, time after time after time, that within a matter of 3 days of them living here with me and tapping into my rhythm, which is nature's rhythm, they start experiencing phenomenal transformations in their health. Some friends who came with digestive issues noticed that within a matter of a week, their digestion was perfectly fine. Other friends who had acne, they came here and they noticed that within a matter of 1 week, their acne was disappearing, and they did not need all the crazy thing that they were trying to use in the city. I have another friend who struggled with a lot of pain in her menstrual cycle, and she experienced very irregular menstrual cycle. After being here and being exposed to sunlight during the day, darkness at night, she noticed that her pain disappeared. She did not experience very painful menstrual cycle. So the unbalanced effects that we could experience are countless. It could manifest in so many different areas in the body. But from my experience, the one cause is very simple. When we are living in a way that is completely misaligned from nature's rhythm, it completely disrupts our own rhythm, and it spreads out into every area of our health. If we have the tendency to have acne, that will manifest as acne. If we have, genes that are weaker in digestion, it may manifest as digestion. But the truth is that when you fix that rhythm and you have that solid circadian biology, it's going to massively impact every aspect of your health.
Now, you had mentioned when we were talking earlier about even hunger levels and sugar and carb cravings and weight gain. And that really fascinated me because I'll even see posts in my Girl Fix Your Thyroid Facebook group. It's a public group, and people will put in there, what's the cause of air hunger? I get this, intense hunger during the day. I have carb and sugar cravings where it feels like I need it, like it's an addiction, like a true addiction. Can you talk about that
Yes.
correlation between the cravings and the hunger and the weight gain?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm gonna take a small step from here so that I could connect it in a way that makes sense to the audience. There's a German scientist. His name is Fritz Hollweg. He published beautiful work describing how light impact our endocrine system.
Mhm.
But in one of his studies, he showed that sitting under artificial blue light tragically increase our cortisol and ACTH level in a very abnormal way. And since cortisol, the stress hormone, provides glucose to prepare your body for fight and flight mechanism, this literally increases your blood sugar level and leads to carbs and sugar craving. Because think about it, if you are in nature and you face a tiger, this cortisol in that moment is very purposeful. It's supposed to rise so that you have enough sugar flowing into your muscles so that you can fight or flight and run away to stay alive for survival. But the truth is that in today's world, when we are sitting in a junk light environment, it's creating an effect of that illusionary tiger that is present all the time.
Mhm.
No matter where you run, it's there. And it's
Yep.
constantly increasing your cortisol in an abnormal way and leading to those spikes in blood glucose. And one of my friends, I think you know Sachin Patel, right?
Yes, very. Yes. He's
Yeah.
very
So basically, it's very interesting because when he started wearing the Vivare's daytime glasses, he was at the time constantly wearing his blood glucose monitor, and he
Mhm.
reached out probably like a few weeks after, reporting how his blood glucose level was much more stable, even though he did not change his diet. So the
Mhm.
light that is entering his eyes was altering his blood glucose, and when blood glucose chaotic, it lead to a chaotic mind and chaotic emotions. And when our emotions are all over the place, we are much more likely to make bad decisions.
Yep.
And it will disrupt not only our relationships, but we also become a lot more compulsive and have the tendency to make bad food choices, picking junk, sugary, carbs food rather than whole organic food.
Mhm.
So that's one aspect of how light disrupt our blood glucose, leading to carbs and sugar craving. On the other side, we also know that blue light make people leptin resistant, and leptin, for the audience, if they're not familiar with the word leptin, it's the hormone that is stored underneath the fat tissues in the skin, and it's literally released after every meal to tell your brain that you have enough energy and that you should stop eating. So it's the satiety hormone.
Mhm.
And when the sun sets and supposedly we stop exposing our eyes to artificial light, obviously melatonin, the sleep hormone, will start rising after a few hours. And this triggers leptin to travel up to the hypothalamus in the brain and to upregulate the pituitary gland. And this increases our metabolism and growth hormone production. And we literally start burning fat at night while sleeping.
Mhm.
So that's massive, not only for fat burning, but also for repair, growth, and rejuvenation at night when we sleep.
Right.
Now, the problem is that chronic exposure to blue light causes two main issues. We know that the light that is emitted from screens and LED bulbs, it's very different than the blue light that is emitted from sunlight for two main reasons. Number one, it's not full spectrum blue light. It has a very narrow spike in blue that is not balanced and proportionate with other frequencies of colors like yellow, orange, and red. And when we are exposed to this narrow spike of blue all the time, free from the regenerative colors, it increases oxidative stress and inflammation. And this blocks the leptin signal to the brain, and we become leptin resistant. And when the brain is not correctly receiving the signal from leptin, you don't only lose the the satiety benefits, but the brain will also decreases your energy level in order to conserve energy. So you become more lazy. You're much less likely to have the desire to go and exercise. And on the other side, also, when we expose ourselves to artificial light at night, is going to suppress melatonin, is going to inhibit leptin from traveling up to the hypothalamus in the brain, and it will increase our hunger level, and it will increase the hormone of hunger, ghrelin, because it makes sense, right? I mean, like when you wake up first thing in the morning and you view sunlight, sunlight has blue light, and that blue light increases the hunger level ghrelin, because evolutionarily that will tell us to go hunt or forage. However, viewing that light at night after the sunset, when you're sitting down and watching Netflix with the family or scrolling on social media or turning on all these bright lights in your living room, it's literally going to send that subconscious signal that will lead you to go and eat. And I've seen this over and over again. People try to exercise their willpower to stop the hunger signal at night, and they fail and they blame themselves. And that was me for so many years. I tried not to eat at night because I knew it's not good for me, but every time I failed and I found myself in front of the fridge eating all kind of food, and then I would wake up feeling guilty. And it wasn't until I understood that it's not my mistake. I am living in the wrong environment that is leading to the wrong signal, and it feels like I'm swimming upstream against the river. It wasn't until then that I made that change in my environment that I finally started effortlessly feeling a lot of satisfaction and no hunger level at night.
Wow. That is so powerful. That's so powerful. So as I'm listening to all this, I know what's going through the audience's mind is, but Roudy, we can't do that. We can't live on a farm. I have to go to the office. I'm going to be under the light. Like I'm sitting here with you with a ring light and 2 box lights and then the overhead lights. Now I have a window, so I do have a bunch of questions as to like exposure to light to a certain point in your house. But what do we do? What's the practical, before we get into the blue light blocking glasses and all the different glasses that we can do, what can we do about our light environment? Light bulbs, change things, get outside even for 5 minutes. Like, what can we do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can share some steps. So number one is getting, like waking up first thing in the morning. And this is probably the most important thing you could do. And if there's one thing that you want to implement from this podcast, it's going to be like mainly 2 steps: getting morning sunlight first thing in the morning and blocking artificial light at night. But when you first wake up, don't look at your phone and don't turn on all these artificial lights in your kitchen, and run to like make a cup of coffee. The reality is that sunlight and nature has the most effective cup of coffee that you will ever drink. And that happens when light into your eyes first thing in the morning, because it's going to signal to your brain that the day is starting. And that sends a signal to your adrenal gland to release cortisol and adrenaline at the right time of the day. See, cortisol has a bad connotation. People think, oh my God, I don't need cortisol. It's a stress hormone. It's the bad hormone.
Yeah.
The reality is, in nature, there's nothing good or bad. Everything is relative, and there's a right time and place for everything. So when we secrete cortisol at the right time of the day, that is going to allow us to feel energized, alert, and ready for the day. That is that feeling that most people look for in their cup of coffee. In reality, it happens naturally when you get morning sunlight first thing in the day. Now, step number 2, I want to invite the audience to download an app called the Circadian Lifestyle. I will actually share the link with you, Amy, so that you can add it to the description. I really like this app because it actually tracks your location and it gives you the timing of important times during the day, like when the sunrise is rising, when the sun is setting. But also it tells you when UVA and UVB are rising in your environment, which differs depending on the time of the season and depending on your location. And why is that important? because UVA is the main frequency that help you to produce melatonin via the conversion of the amino acid tryptophan, which you get from food.
Mhm.
And so literally the hormone of darkness, melatonin, is actually produced in the eyes in response to UVA light. Also, UVA will help you convert tyrosine into dopamine. And dopamine is this miraculous molecule that allow you to think outside of the box, see the bigger picture in life. And it's the hormone of motivation. It allows you to go after what you really want in life. It literally helps you to sit down and pay attention. And what's one epidemic that most people today are really struggling with? Lack of attention and distraction.
Oh, yeah.
If there's one thing that inhibits people from really going after what they want in life, is because their attention is all over the place, and that's a dopamine issue. And on the other side, Amy, viewing artificial light after the sunset, and this has been backed up by a study published by Dr. Samer Hittar, it actually activates an area in the brain called the hibinula, known as the disappointment center. And it has been shown that when you view artificial light after the sunset, you wake up the following day with much less dopamine in your system. So the combination of lack of sunlight during the day, or perhaps wearing sunglasses when you go outside, which block 100% of UVA and UVB, combined with a lot of artificial light at night, completely destroy your dopamine and makes you a lot more likely to become addicted, whether to sugar or food or porn or any destructive behavior. Addiction is highly tied to low dopamine level in the system.
Mm-hmm.
So to recap, step number 1, morning sunlight. Step number 2, tracking when UVA is rising in your environment and going outside for 5 or 10 minutes, getting that UVA in your eyes.
Yep.
Step number 3, when you are working on your computer in an indoor lighting environment, wearing the Viva Rays daytime lenses, which those are not blue blockers.
I was going to say, is that what you have on right now?
Yes, that's what I have on. Now,
Okay.
if I wasn't on this podcast and if I did not have the big rings of lights to light up my space, I would have not worn them because I have a lot of windows in my office.
Right. Okay.
But due to the fact that I have also a lot of toxic LEDs coming at the level of my eye, I'm wearing those blue light harmonizers. And the beauty of these lenses is, unlike other blue blocking glasses that block a lot of blue light during the day, which could be very disruptive to your rhythm, those are harmonizers. So they address the spike of blue light that is emitted from LEDs, and they make it more harmonized by decreasing its sharpness and making it more balanced and proportionate with the green, yellow, and orange. And in this way, you're decreasing the inflammatory light, and you are still getting a lot of the blue turquoise that tell your brain that it's daytime, so that you can maintain optimal energy level during the day.
Okay. Beautiful.
But at the same time, what's absolutely necessary is, in this step number 3, not only wearing the glasses, but starting to take sun breaks every 2 to 3 hours. It's absolutely necessary to leave your indoor environment, go outside even for 5 minutes and get that sunlight in your eyes without wearing any sunglasses or prescription lenses or contact lenses.
Yep. Well, I messaged you that I was running late to record this, and you're like, okay, great. I'm going to go get some sunshine. And I mean, that's what you have to do, right? Anytime you have a break or you have to create the break, like you said, just go outside, and even just 5 minutes. You don't need a half an hour laying out session in the sun or a half an hour or 45-minute walk. You can literally do it in 5 to 10 minutes, which is totally doable for everyone.
Yes. And that UVB light not only helps you to produce vitamin D, which is absolutely essential to health, and the lack of vitamin D is related to all-cause mortality, but also increases blood flow via nitric oxide production. It has been shown to decrease the heart rate and decrease blood pressure and make you more calm and much less tense and anxious. So anytime during the day you're facing a very, a difficult situation where you feel tense and anxious and like you're not breathing properly, just go outside, get some sunshine and breathe, and you'll notice that it's phenomenal. There's no other thing that you could use, no hack, no pill, nothing that could really like match the power that you could get from nature.
Wow, that's powerful. Now, I'm going to argue this point, and I'm going to let you expand on it for the nighttime. The blue light blocking glasses at night. Now, I want to just throw out my experience to the audience in case they've been in the same boat that I have. First, I started with the blue light blocking glasses, and I'm using air quotes here, that my ophthalmologist office offered when I was getting my glasses, right? I pop my contacts out at night, I throw my glasses on, give my eyes a break. And I thought I was doing great because I had the lenses that apparently had blue light blocking. They weren't a different color and they did absolutely nothing. So right there, first experience, it didn't help me at all. So then I move on to buying some kind of blue light blockers on Amazon, right? And these are big honkers and they get all like I don't know, gross on the lenses, and they're not a different color either. But I thought, well, I'm doing a good job because I bought the blue light blocking glasses, right? So then I started wearing those. Then I moved on to another company that, okay, they have to be orange. Oh, I get it now. So now I buy the blue light blocking glasses that have an orange tint, and I'm wearing them at night and I'm not noticing anything. You and I meet, we get to talking. You're like, let me just send you a pair of Viva Rays. And I'm going to tell the whole audience, this is not a sponsored podcast. I didn't ask him to be on to pimp Viva Ray glasses. I asked him to be on because of my experience with them. I'm like, okay, Roudy, go ahead and send me your glasses. That's fine. And I'm wearing these things, and I kid you not, my sleep is better. And I don't even think I'm doing it right. I have some questions about how I'm doing it for you today. But just, I mean, it made such a tremendous difference in my sleep. I went out and bought a couple for my friends because I'm like, this is fantastic. So can you get into that point of how important it is? And I don't think people realize it, to block that light at night for that deeper sleep and what it does to the body.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. And I'm laughing because it sounds like we had a very similar experience, because I also went through that experience of getting very expensive clear blue blocking glasses from my optometrist, only to discover that they were actually doing nothing. They were blocking blue purple light that is not even emitted by LEDs. And then I went on this journey of buying all these different orange and red lenses, and I did not experience the benefits that I was experiencing on the farm. And that was actually my first trigger to starting to investigate this a little bit more. And being an engineer and being a very curious mind, I bought so many tools and the spectrocolorimeter, and I got in touch with a doctor from Florida who really got interested in my story and my hypothesis about why I think developing something like this could be very useful. And him and I were working together for about a year, experimenting with different dyes. And at the time, Amy, I had zero intention to start a company. In fact, I was in a very different phase in my life when I did not have a bank account, I did not have a phone, I did not have a computer. That was the time when I was farming a lot, and I was engaged in doing a lot of meditation in a center called Vipassana. And at the time, I could not even imagine the idea of me opening the business, but I wanted to make the glasses because I was so eager to solve that problem. And interestingly enough, after a year of experimenting, when I made the first pair that I was satisfied with, I actually decided to make 20 or 30 more, because in my experiences going to the Vipassana retreat center, I would always meet these young people and we would start having conversation, and they would share with me about their struggles with sleep, with digestion, with hormones. And then I would ask them more questions. And the underlying pattern that I constantly saw is that all of them were not getting enough sunlight, and all of them were bombarded by artificial lights at night. And then I would share my story with them and tell them, listen, I want nothing from you. All I want is please for the like, I did this with you. I said like, please for the next week, only try these glasses
Yep.
and optimize your sunlight exposure during the day, and then call me back. I'd like to know what's gonna happen.
Yep.
And again and again and again, time after time, I would get, people are really fascinated with the results they were getting. And that's when my sister knew about this, and she has almost dreamed of like opening a business and doing something together. So she started convincing me, and I was very hard to convince at that time, but luckily she did. And the reason why this works, Amy, is because it helps us to reset our circadian rhythm completely. And light, most people think about light as something superficial that makes vision possible. So you turn on the light, you can see what's around you. You turn off the light, you can't see anymore.
Mm-hmm.
However, light is much more powerful than this. Light is information, and it literally tells our body about what is going on around us so that we can secrete the right hormones. For instance, watching the sunset is absolutely a powerful step. Why is that? Because when the sun is setting, the frequencies of colors start slowly fading away. So sunlight will start decrease, the amount of blue and green light from the sun will start slowly fading away and decreasing. And this sends a subconscious message to our nervous system that the day is ending, activating our parasympathetic nervous system and allowing us to start winding down. And this literally is an announcement that the body makes, letting all of our organs and cells know to activate our inner pharmacology so that we can prepare for a deep, restful night's sleep. When we miss that signal, it messes up our hormones at night. And what happened is, in today's world, you and I and most of my friends, we are struggling with an invisible tiger. And this is the second sun that we're exposed to from our phones, but also equally from all the LED lights that we are installing in our homes. After the sunset, when we view that light, it will send the wrong signal to the brain, telling the body that it's daytime. It will completely disrupt our hormone. And therefore, we cannot access deep, restful night's sleep. Even though we may be sleeping for 8 hours,
Yeah.
the reality is that the body is not undergoing proper autophagy and apoptosis and mitophagy. And those all are fancy terms to describe the process that happens at night when the cells replace the old cell, our mitochondria and the cells replace the old with new. And that is the key that allow us to stay young and vibrant. Because when we start accumulating cells that are not functioning properly, that's when we start aging. And what the glasses do is that after the sunset, when you clip on those evening lenses, which you don't actually need 3 different frames. That's like one of the things that we came up with.
Yeah.
It's called the 3-in-1. You clip on your evening lenses after the sunset, and these lenses are engineered to mimic the color temperature of the bonfire exactly at 1600 kelvins. And they filter out all of the blue light and strategically specific amounts of greens, because we want it to help the nervous system know that the day has ended. And I like to describe it as that experience you get when you are around a bonfire.
Yeah.
If you've ever been around a bonfire, you feel like relaxed, you wind down.
Yeah.
Yet you have enough energy to dance, cook, and socialize with friends. And this is the purpose of the evening lenses. It helps you wind down, but you're not very sleepy, so you can still run your evening activities without feeling like, oh my God, I need to go to bed. Now,
in the summer, when should we be putting those on? Because that's what's throwing me off right now, is it's staying really light till like 9 o'clock at night. So when should I be putting on my orange?
yeah, so the orange are a lot more purposeful in the fall and in the winter when the sun sets very early. So if the sun is setting at 4, for example, if you put your nighttime lenses at 4, you're gone at 5, and it's completely it's completely dysfunctional. So this is why we came up with the evening as a transition between daytime and nighttime.
Yeah.
However, during the longer days of the year, like the summer, when the sun is setting at 9 p.m., What I would advise is then at 9, if you wanted to go to bed right after the sunset, then putting the nighttime glasses at 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And those block all of the blue, all of the green, and they decrease the brightness by 10 to 15 times to tell the brain that it's completely dark outside and maximize melatonin production and growth hormone so that you can have restful night's sleep and wake up feeling refreshed and energized. But those are pre-intense, so you don't want to put them early when the sun is setting early. That's why you put the evening and then you transition to the nighttime.
Nighttime. Okay. Okay. So I've been doing it okay. I throw on my evening ones really around like 7 or 8 because ultimately I'll go to bed at 10. So then I'll put on the nighttime red ones, usually about like 8:30 or 9.
Right.
Okay. So I got it right.
What time is the sun setting in your environments right now?
It's like 8:30 or 9 at night.
8:30. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty late.
Like, have you been like, witnessing the sunset or at least being outside during that time of the day?
No, well, a little bit. I should do more though. When it's nice out, yes, I will sit on my deck and just kind of, watch the sunset and let it get dark. But if it's not nice out, no, I just lay on my couch and watch Netflix and sit on my computer, which I also
Yes.
shouldn't be doing at night. So that's my next question. And I'll let you expand on the getting outside part. But what about people that do just have to, I got to sit here, I got to finish up my work. But if I have my evening glasses on, am I at least a little protected or am I screwed either way because of the computer and the phone?
No, absolutely. You are pretty protected because you're eliminating the frequencies of light that confuses your brain about the time of the day.
Okay.
Now, for optimal results, what I would recommend is when the sun is setting, just make 5 to 10 minutes to be outside so that you could receive that signal from nature
Okay.
that the day is ending. And then if you need to come back home and you do have work, then I would advise anytime you need to work or be active after the sunset, then the evening lenses are the right lenses to put on because they will allow you to still function. And then the moment you finish and you know that there's nothing occupying your mind, that you can completely be passive and go into like a state of deep rest and introspection, then that's when I would advise putting the nighttime lenses. And those
Okay.
will really optimize melatonin and growth hormone.
Okay. Okay. That's totally doable. See, this is all doable, people. This is all doable. So a couple last questions for you. The exposure to our skin. So I know that by protecting our eyes, we're at least getting the largest amount of protection from the blue light and the LEDs. But isn't it true that we also get some absorption of the LEDs and the blue light in our skin?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. We do have opsins, and opsins are those photosensitive proteins that respond to light. They're like little sensors that capture light information from our environment and signal to the different parts in the body about what is happening in the environment. So those opsins are present in our eyes, in our skin, in our lungs, and in our gut, right? So intuitively, I would say the light on the skin is not optimal at night. Now, scientifically, or let's say what we now know from a data perspective, based on all of the studies that have been run on circadian biology, the primary pathway that directly impact our circadian clock is happening via the way of the eyes. Light into the eyes, activate those opsins, converts into an electric signal that travels via the optic nerve at a high speed into the hypothalamus to reset that circadian clock. And regardless of the fact that many studies also have been showing that we do have melanopsin in our skin, there has been no evidence that this melanopsin communicate in any way with the central clock in the brain. However, intuitively, I do feel that I do not like exposing my skin to any form of artificial light after the sunset.
Right.
And I cannot back this up with any studies, to be honest, but that's what my intuition feels.
Okay. Yeah, I just heard that, so I wanted to run that by you as well. And then my final question is why are the Viva Rays working for me when everything else didn't? What are you doing differently to these bad boys that make them so magical?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that we do differently is that we engineer our lenses with the science of light in mind. And a lot of the companies today, they are producing lenses perhaps because they have heard that there's a big marketing gimmick or there's a big, need for blue blockers. And oftentimes those factories and manufacturers do not understand properly about how the science of light work. Interestingly enough, we've seen the clear lenses that are blocking blue purple light for some reason. And when you measure the light that is emitted from LED lights and screens, there's no blue purple that is emitted whatsoever. The emission starts at 430 nanometer and peaks at 455. And the clear lenses, they block blue light up to 420.
Mm.
So that tells you a little bit about the word of manufacturing. Like a lot of people throw a lot of products out there without even testing. Like most human beings today, they are driven by the desire to make money very fast, and that disrupts their ability to take the time to actually test what they're offering the audience.
Mhm.
And I've seen this again and again with a lot of the cheap glasses on Amazon.
Yeah.
I've probably ordered all of them and I've tested all of them. And the truth is that even if the lenses are orange or red, the way they are performing could be very different. Many of the orange lenses that I've tested, they have a lot of light leakage. And what this means is when you test them, you will see that they're leaking a lot of light at different wavelength. So
Okay.
you take at 420 nanometer, they're allowing 10%. At 430 nanometer, they're allowing 15%. And that is more because there's a lot of light that is still going through those lenses. And therefore, when you use those products, let's say you're using the orange lenses from a cheap Amazon company, I would say it's better than nothing at night because it's still like eliminating some of that junk light. But definitely, it's not going to be optimal. It's not going to produce the same results that you experienced, Amy, when you start using the Viva Rays glasses. Which I highly appreciate, by the way, that you took the time to make the experiment and to reach out back to me and to invite me on your podcast. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
No, I was, like I said, this is legit. I was genuinely impressed at the quality of my sleep and how that has drastically improved. So really, just to summarize all of this, for anyone listening, if you are struggling with anything that we talked about today, the depression, the focus, the attention span, the memory, ADHD, anxiety, mood changes. You had mentioned fertility off air, so I'll throw that in there. Fertility, menstrual pain, acne, weight gain, inability to lose weight. Your whole endocrine system is disrupted. You have high glucose, you have high A1C, high insulin, messed up cortisol, messed up adrenals. I mean, we can probably go on, but just listen, because it might not be another drug or supplement that you need. I mean, you still might need to come over here and address some things that are really out of whack in your system, but especially for my patients that are listening and we have you on the right protocol, if you're not experiencing the results that you want to experience, this is your next step. And this is simple, it's affordable. Some of it is free, i.e., stepping out into the sunlight, looking at the sun first thing in the morning, getting 5 to 10 minutes during the day, and then invest in a proven good pair of blue light blocking glasses. And actually, now that I've talked to you, I need to get a daytime pair for when I'm here. I got the prescription ones because when I was talking to you, I said, here's my biggest issue. I want to take my contacts out at night. So I've been in this conundrum of, do I take my contacts out and not see and throw on the blue light blocking glasses that I got from another company? Or, do I actually leave my contacts in, have my eyes dry out? And you're like, oh yeah, not a problem. We can do prescription. I'm like, boom, sold. So that's what I did for the nighttime, but I need to get just a pair of daytime ones that can go over my contacts that I can take on and off in here when I'm exposed to so much LED. But I'm a fan. I am sold. And you actually gave my audience, which thank you. You gave my audience a 10% discount code, which I mean, that's huge, especially if you're going for the prescription. I mean, that's a great big saving. So we're going to put the link into the show notes, but anyone going to vivaraise.com/Dr. Amy, use the code Dr. Amy, DRAMIE, and that will give you 10% off your Viva Raise. But like I said, this is not a sponsored podcast. This is me truly trying these out and noticing a huge, huge difference. So, I mean, the information you gave, Roudy, is just, it's amazing. Like I already thought of I was writing down the title of the podcast, and it's going to be OMG, you need to listen to this. That's how it's going to start to capture people's attention. And then, I'll put something in about light and this and that. But no, it's that impactful for me talking to you today that I'm like, everyone needs to hear this. They need to listen, not just hear. They need to listen and take this in, because this could be such a key factor in their health, key factor. So I love you. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amy, for having me and for the trust also that you've given me to come and speak to your audience today.
100%. 100%. So thank you so much. And I want to hear from everybody that get your Viva Raise. How's your sleep? How's your health? What has improved?
Also, I'm going to share with you a link that you can add in the description. It's a gift to the audience. It's an e-booklet that I have written after, 5 to 7 years of studying quantum biophysics and all the effects of light. But I wanted to write something that is short, like 40, 50 pages, and that is extremely simple, that I could hand to a kid that is 3 or 4 years old, and know that the kid could know exactly what they need to do in order to elevate their light environment to a whole new level and start experiencing better sleep, better hormonal production, better mood, and more energy, focus, and productivity. So I'll share this with you so that you can share it with the audience as well.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time today.